MFA updates
Hello, good morning. Welcome to MFA Update. This is a weekly program where we talk about Thailand's foreign affairs and activities. And you're here with me today, Grace Nishikapumi. For this week's edition, we will discuss Thailand and the 42nd ASEAN Summit in Indonesia. And we have Khun Pornpong Vangphaen, Deputy Director General of the Department of ASEAN Affairs, to give us more information on this matter.
The foreign affairs that matter. Special guests from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is the MFA updates.
So first off, I would like to ask Khun Pornpong to tell us about the 42nd ASEAN Summit under Indonesia's chairmanship that just concluded last week.
Thank you for that question, Khun Grace. For the benefits of listeners unfamiliar with ASEAN, perhaps I could just first give a glimpse of how the summits are scheduled. Of course, the ASEAN Summit, the significance of them is that it is the highest policy-making body in ASEAN. And per the ASEAN Charter and regular practice, the leaders-level summit shall be held twice a year. One held in the first half of the year, usually around April or May, and the second one held towards the end of the year. Now, the distinction between the two summits is that the first summit will focus on intra-ASEAN issues, such as organizational matters, strengthening the institutions and bodies under ASEAN, and addressing challenges and issues that have direct impacts on the people of ASEAN. And the second one would serve to address these concerns as well as their follow-ups. But more importantly, it is where ASEAN interacts with the dialogue partners and external partners, where we engage in discussions on global issues and share common concerns. Now, coming back to the 42nd ASEAN Summit held last week under Indonesia's chairmanship, this year the theme is ASEAN Matters at the Centrum of Growth, which basically has two key agendas. The leaders discussed intra-ASEAN matters related to the well-being and livelihoods of the peoples, how ASEAN can strengthen its institutional capacity, and more effectively, how to respond to the various pressing challenges of the day, which ranges from the geopolitical challenges, from major power rivalry to economic recovery post-COVID-19. So the leaders looking ahead post-2025, they discussed on how ASEAN could fulfill the aspirations of the peoples in 2045. So it is a grand vision of ASEAN, and the ASEAN leaders has issued a statement on the development of the ASEAN community's post-2025 vision. Also on the table were issues such as advancing regional health architecture, food and energy security, financial stability, as well as the development of the electric vehicle ecosystem. So that is something that the ASEAN leaders are looking towards the future in how we could fulfill our energy security, on how we could move forward the sustainability agenda through these kinds of policy developments. Also, the leaders addressed challenges of the day, such as the how we could enhance ASEAN's institutional capacity and effectiveness, through strengthening ASEAN's mechanisms, perhaps the role of the Secretary General, the role of the ASEAN Secretariat, and other ASEAN-led mechanisms. All this is also to preserve, ASEAN centrality and relevance in the shifting geopolitics, especially, as we are currently seeing major powers, rivalry and competition in our region.
Now you've talked about the overview of the 42nd ASEAN Summit. I would like to move on to our country, Thailand. Can you tell us what are the key priorities of Thailand at the 42nd ASEAN Summit, please?
Well, yes. Our Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, His Excellency Sardon Parameswaran, attended the meeting as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy. And he raised a couple of important issues that are of major concern for Thailand. First of all, on the transboundary haze pollution. As you know, Thailand was faced with some severe haze pollution, especially in the north of Thailand. So he raised this topic at the summit and requested for closer cooperation on transboundary haze pollution. And of course, as a follow-up to the discussions between the prime ministers of Thailand and the Lao PDR and Myanmar, where our prime minister had proposed a clear sky strategy and capacity building programs with our neighboring countries. So Thailand plans to conduct a feasibility study with Myanmar on waste to energy project to reduce open burning, especially byproducts from agriculture. Another issue which is very of major concern to Thailand is on transnational crimes. And that is because in part, because of the prolonged instability in Myanmar, which gave rise to increasing transnational crime in the region, especially drug trafficking and trafficking in persons. And of course, this is in line with one of the outcomes of the summit, where the leaders issued a declaration on combating trafficking in persons caused by the abuse of technology. So to counter this problem, we need the collective cooperation of all ASEAN member states. Another issue which we gave importance to is on health security. And of course, we're the center for the Secretariat for the ASEAN Center for Public Health Emergencies and Emerging Diseases. So we are hoping that the establishment agreement of this Secretariat could be expedited. Another topic which Thailand also is very close to our heart is that on sustainability issues, especially the sustainable economic development, where we would like to promote more focus on sustainability issues such as circular economy, green financing, carbon neutrality, or electric vehicle ecosystem development. Another topic which was raised by our Deputy Prime Minister is, of course, the concern over the volatile geopolitics, and he reiterated the need to preserve ASEAN centrality and how we could constructively engage with all major powers to reduce confrontation and prevent conflict. And we expressed our readiness to work with all ASEAN member states and external partners to promote a win-win cooperation in support of the implementation of the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific, or the AOIP for short. And this, of course, will hopefully help to bring or foster peace and stability in our region.
And in the meeting, who did the ASEAN leaders get to meet? And also, could you tell us what are the issues that were discussed?
Yes, Congress. At this summit, the leaders had met with some stakeholders, especially representatives from the ASEAN Interparliamentary Assembly, the ASEAN Youth, the ASEAN Business Advisory Council, as well as the high-level task force on the ASEAN community's post-2025 vision. So it is important that ASEAN leaders hear from stakeholders who are instrumental in advancing ASEAN community building process. So, of course, this is a usual practice that ASEAN leaders get to meet with the relevant stakeholders. And, of course, it is a collective effort in order to respond effectively to the needs of the various groups of peoples of ASEAN. So for the Inter-Parliamentary Assembly, this is a very important stakeholder, as governments has to work hand in hand with parliaments to bring about concrete and tangible benefits of ASEAN community to the people. So this year, I think the Parliamentary Assembly focused on the role of parliaments in helping ASEAN to address challenges arising from the shifting geopolitics, from the disruption in supply chains, in the environmental degradation. So the role of parliaments are very important indeed in contributing to the effective implementation of the various ASEAN agreements, such as the transboundary haze pollution that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And another group which is also very important, especially for the future development of ASEAN, are the youth.
Yeah.
So the key issues that were raised by the ASEAN leaders for the youth consideration is that they have a responsible role as an agent of change in society. They need to perhaps enhance their digital literacy in order to respond to the digital transformation that's going on across ASEAN. And of course, Deputy Prime Minister Dawn also cautioned against being aware of the misuse of social media, as well as, feeding or misinformation benefits no one. And the ASEAN leaders also encourage the youth to also look into matters of sustainability, such as renewable energy and so forth. As for the business sector in ASEAN, of course, they are the main driver of our economy. So their views are very important for the continued economic growth in ASEAN. And if to go to complement the theme of the Indonesian's ASEAN Chairmanship, that ASEAN must remain the epicentrum of growth. So the ASEAN leaders, they acknowledged the 5 priorities of the ASEAN Business Advisory Council for this year, which 1 is digital transformation, 2 is sustainable development, 3 is health resilience, 4 is on food security, and 5 is on trade and investment facilitation. So all these should be in sync is what ASEAN as a whole is undertaking, and it will contribute to making ASEAN become epicentrum of growth. And the last group that the leaders met was on the high-level task force on ASEAN Community's post-2025 vision. So they discussed on the future direction of the ASEAN community in the next 2 decades. And of course, in the next vision of ASEAN, which is 2045, the main focus is on how ASEAN can remain relevant in the fast-changing world. So the leaders, they reiterated the need for the new vision to be forward-looking, to be aspirational, with the benefit of the people at the center. Because after all, ASEAN must aim to be a people-centered community.
All right, so thank you so much, Kun Ponpong, for being in our show and giving us a lot of information regarding the 42nd ASEAN Summit that just ended very recently. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you.
That was Kun Ponpong Vangphaen, Deputy Director General of the Department of ASEAN Affairs, talking about Thailand and the 42nd ASEAN Summit in Indonesia. And with that, we conclude the program for this week. If you want to listen to this episode or the previous episodes of the MFA Update again, please visit the YouTube channel, MFA Thailand, or you can check out our Facebook page, FM88 Radio Thailand English. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. I'm Grace Nishaka Phumi. Happy weekend. สวัสดีค่ะ
MFA Updates